Hello, welcome to the Conscious Spirit Podcast. I'm Pam. This is somewhere between a Pam Ponders and a regular podcast. I'm not sure what this is yet. Mari-Lyn is on vacation, and so I decided I would just sit down and do a podcast with her blessing, by the way. I think what I want to talk about today was I had a client ask me some questions this morning, and I get asked the same question often, and that is, did you always know you were psychic? How do you know that? What is being psychic? So I thought maybe I would talk a little bit about that today for this podcast. So if you're all interested, hang on and let's take this ride together. I'll start from the beginning. As a child, when I look back, I know how psychic I was. At the time, I didn't know. What did anyone know? You just feel things. And that's mostly how it happens with children, is there's a lot of feeling involved. We have to be human, first of all. As we all know, that our childhood is often traumatic, and we choose those traumas. Yes, we do. I know I have looked back many a time and thought, what the hell was I thinking? Why did I want to be traumatized that much? Why all the abuse? Well, I asked for it, and I asked for it for the evolution of my soul. I asked for it to move forward. I've had so many lifetimes, and it accumulated with wanting to be a teacher in this lifetime, wanting to bring truth and love to the consciousness. So to do that, there were certain things that I had to experience, and that is trauma is one of them. Being abused, being raised with no self-esteem, being isolated, being made fun of. All of those scenarios were for my benefit, which I know is hard when we all look back on our life and we look at things that were traumatizing. And why the hell would I want to choose that? Well, when we heal, it's much easier to look back and know the why. What were those lessons? Why do I need to know them now? As much as I was abused, neglected, traumatized, all of those things, I today in my mid-50s can look back and I am so grateful. I am so grateful for every time I cried, every time I was made fun of, every time. So in my family, I come from a big family. I'm the youngest, and I sort of became that whooping boy. I became the one that everyone took out their frustration or their anger on. Not to say that no one else was abusing the house. That's not true. We all were, just each individually in a different way. We were all traumatized. Our father, whom we all loved very much, was a World War II veteran. He had PTSD. He was an alcoholic. He was certainly, when he drank, he was not a nice man. Sober, the nicest man you'd ever meet in your life. Now, those of you who've been following me, you know that my dad has been crossed over for many years, and he is one of my guides that comes in all the time, and I love him for it. Excuse me. So there was a lot of healing that was done with him. Those of you who've been listening also know that my mother, she was mentally ill her whole life. She was never diagnosed with anything. I have had therapists and counselors, after me telling them about her, they kind of said, oh, maybe she was this or maybe she was that, and we really don't know. And I often call her a narcissist. And whether she actually was, or there was just a hell of a lot of narcissism, I'm not sure, but she was mentally ill and very abusive to all of us. So I was raised in a very scary home. I was raised in a very abusive home. The one thing that I honestly never thought about it clearly, but the thing that I knew was that I had these spiritual family around me. I always had them. Fred, Michael, Athena, like they were always there, whatever I needed. I even had animals. I had leopards that were with me. It never occurred to me to question it. It never occurred to me to really tell anyone else about it. No one talked about it back then. You know, I was born in the mid to late 60s. And so I grew up 70s. We weren't talking about paranormal, spiritual, psychics, mediums, any of that. There was some out there, yes. Was some of that information out there? Absolutely. But it wasn't kind of the household thing. It was still very fringy and no one talked about it. So it never occurred to me that maybe that's what was going on with me. But I always knew that I had Fred, and he was the most comforting, loving, compassionate being that I knew. He got me through so much. He also taught me so much. He gave me so much clarity and information. I can remember as a small child, people would say, wow, she is, old beyond her years. Or how did she know that? Or wow, that was a pretty wise thing for such a small child. Those things, yes, those happen. I wasn't psychic like some people talk about, like, when the phone's going to ring, or who's on the other end of the phone when the phone rings. That type of thing, no, I really wasn't. And what's actually coming in now is because of my childhood traumas, the fear that I was in most of the time, that was sort of taken away. So those are more 3D, closer to the surface type psychic abilities. And those I don't necessarily have. I don't do that. As a matter of fact, every time there is like a test in a book or a magazine or whatever, are you psychic? Answer these, 20 questions. I fail them every time. I do. I'm just not. Nope. Nope, not psychic. And I laugh, and it's just funny to me, because being psychic means so many different things. My abilities are so different than that. And the reason that my abilities are the way they are is because I have learned this in my later years. I am able to connect with the other dimensions. That's why TCS, we say we're all dimensions energy healers. That's where my psychic abilities lie. My channel, I have a channel. It's a direct channel. If any of you have listened to my meditations, that's what a channel is. I'm not reading anything. Fred is speaking and the words are coming right out my mouth. And that's the way a channel works. That's how I always was. I always knew about him and some of my other guides, not all of them, but I knew about them. I did not have a lot of paranormal experiences. People ask me that because much of what I do these days is within the paranormal realm, which is also spiritual, by the way. It's all under the spiritual umbrella. But I did not have all those experiences, and what's been explained to me as an adult was I could not have handled that. There was so much abuse in my 3D life. I had to be present for that. That's what I came here to do. I came here for that trauma. So as a healer, when I help people, so we as people are multidimensional, I give multidimensional energy healings to people. And that's even though I'm working within the multidimensions, it's all meant to bring you peace here in the 3D realm, here in the human realm, this place this body, David, where we live, right? So that's the trauma I had to experience. So when I sit down with someone for a multidimensional energy healing, I can have that compassion and that empathy and the understanding. I understand where my clients have been. I understand the trauma that they're in. I understand what they went through and what it takes to heal it. I've experienced all of that. Do I know every single person's exact experience? No, I don't. Of course not. But I understand pain. I understand shame. I understand being made fun of. I understand, physical, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. I get all of that. So on a particular level, I can empathize with people. That's why I had to go through everything I went through as a child. So I can now come out the other side as a teacher. Now, does everyone who has all of that childhood trauma come out as a teacher? Yes. Yes, you do. It just looks different. But you have to heal your shit to be the teacher. And yes, you are. Are you going to do what I do with it? Maybe. But for the most part, we go through all of that trauma, we heal the trauma, and then we have the wisdom on the other side of it to talk to other people. That's teaching. We are all teachers. Sometimes we are teachers, not in a beautiful way for ourselves, but we're teachers. How many of us, I know this is for me a lot, every time I had a friend, so all of you who've been listening know that myself and Mari-Lyn, both of us, had very difficult times with women in our lives growing up. Like we never had that best female friend, right? We've both been married for a long time, and she married younger than I, but we still in our 20s found the man and we married, etc. So that was not, in that place was not an issue for us. Having a female friend, woof, both of us struggled a lot with that. And I'm not going to tell her story. I mention her only to say, finally in our 50s, we found each other. We found that beautiful friend. And it took some time. It took some time to trust one another and to come to that place of, wow, I can share my life with another female. This is amazing. To have a friend like that, my whole life I wanted that type of friend, and I now have it. It took both of us a lot of years of healing to get there, lots of years. And the reward was to have the best friend that we've both always wanted. It's amazing. It's really, truly amazing. But my trauma, so my mother, the narcissism was, I usually say Olympic level, but I think it was more professional level. And whatever she was, I don't know what she'd be diagnosed with today, but she definitely had a lot of mental illness there. When you are a child of a narcissist, or at least those behaviors, you don't trust yourself. Your self-esteem is all but there. I mean, I don't know if I ever really had any. Other than spiritually, I always trusted myself in that area and was always very confident when I realized I was psychic, by the way, which came years later. I'm not sure. Why did I get off on that tangent? I'm not sure about the friends. Oh, just being, now I remember. So being a teacher. We also have teachers who are not. We think of teachers as someone teaching us something wonderful and beautiful and a lot of wisdom. Teachers are also the more important teachers, I think, are the ones that put that mirror up in front of us. And we have to look right at our wounding, our trauma, our bad behaviors, our adopted thinking, all of that. So we all know people like that, right? You just don't like that person for whatever the reason. That is such a good teacher. That person right there is a teacher. And yes, it's harder than hell. Like you don't want to thank the person, and you don't have to. I'm not saying to. Not in person anyway. I thank them spiritually all the time. Thank you for coming into my life and being a complete asshole and showing me where I needed to heal. I say that a lot. There's a lot of that. Those are teachers too. So can we, or are we all teachers? Yes. Yes, we are. We go through all of that trauma. Think of all the people in your life whom you offended, you hurt, you did the wrong thing to, you didn't realize what a jerk you were, and you affected all these people. You said something nasty, you gossiped, whatever it is or was. Some of you still might be doing this today. You are, and this is not an excuse, and you are not allowed to take away and say, well, Pam told me I could be an asshole to you, and that's okay because I'm a teacher. No, that is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're both teachers with each other. That other person that you just offended or hurt or whatever it was shined a mirror on you, and you lashed out, and it hit that mirror and came flying back at you. Pardon me. All right, I'll try to edit all that out, but in case I miss some of it, man, I want to thank everyone. I needed, for those of you who heard me cough, like if I didn't get to it or not, I just really coughed. And that was really my throat chakra. That was our throat chakra is all of our communication. It's not just speaking. Speaking, listening, communicating in whatever way that forms, the way we express ourselves comes through there. And I just dislodged something that I needed to dislodge, something that needed to come out. And I'm very grateful. And if I remember right, I was talking about being mean to someone, not liking someone, being mean to them, saying something nasty or making a rude comment. And even if you don't even know that person, so you don't even know if you like them or not, but they shine that mirror up there and it bounces off them and comes back and hits you to remind you that you still have trauma and you have wounding and you're not being kind. So that's when that sort of just lodged in my throat. And I'm so very grateful. I used to be such a huge gossip. It was awful. It really was. I was not kind at all with my words. I even thought that times when, my mother used to always say, if you don't want the truth, don't ask Pam a question. And it always kind of rubbed me wrong, but because of her, I took it like as a compliment, like somehow that was a compliment. Well, it wasn't, not really. To a narcissist, that was a real compliment. But it wasn't a compliment because I wasn't being kind in my answers. I was being as mean as possible. If you asked me a question like, how do I look in this dress? I'm just going to go there. And it's not really even the questions that were asked, but that's what's coming. Well, how do I look in this dress? I'd say, ooh, you look fat. That dress does not work on you. And what are you thinking about with those shoes? So is it truthful? Maybe. There might be a thread in there, but that's not the way you talk to people. How unkind is that? How unkind. I would say it very differently these days. And maybe that person, obviously that person asked, so they're either fishing for a compliment because they're feeling insecure, or they really want to, there's so many reasons why someone would ask that. And I would just be much more kind today. And I would probably start with, how would you like me to answer that? Do you, are you, you're a beautiful person. Are you looking for a compliment? Do you really want that answer from me? And if they say yes, I might say, I don't think that dress is as flattering on you as maybe another or a different style. And I'm not sure, just from my own way of seeing things, I'm not sure if those shoes are right either. That's much nicer than telling someone they're a fat ass and, their shoes are ugly. I mean, that's just not, you know what I mean? So there is being truthful, although it's the way I see things. That doesn't mean it's the truth, but it's the way I see things. And somehow for my mother, that was a compliment to me to say, that Pam will tell you the truth. Anyway, in that situation, that person was absolutely a teacher to me. I said something nasty and it flung back and hit me. That was mean. That was not kind. I can remember after situations like that, later becoming really filled with guilt or shame or just feeling really bad or angry. And I didn't know enough to look inside to figure out why. But of course, looking back, I can say, well, it's because I was so mean. I just hurt someone's feelings. I really just hurt someone. And no matter, even if that person were a complete asshole, they still have a soul. They still deserve, I deserve to be kind because it's coming from me. Because I want to be that kind person. I still want to stand in my dignity, which is how we honor ourselves. I want to honor myself enough by being loving and kind when I speak to people. If you ask me a question, I want to be as honest as I can be in the lovingest way I can be. Now, sometimes, certainly in my practice, there are people who I have to be a little more blunt with, but that doesn't mean I have to be mean. I have to try and get them to hear what I'm saying. So yes, there is some bluntness there. But as far as the mean, no. I've had to do a lot of healing on that. And I thank every one of my teachers. At the same time, I apologize to all of them for having those moments of being angry, being in fear, however that looked, whatever reason it was. Certainly there were times if when I was a kid, if my mother was around, it was all to get her approval and attention. And so I was as mean as I could be. And that's when I got attention from her, right? So we all do things in anger. We all do things from that trauma. It's all from trauma. When we, even this is trauma too. If someone asks you, how do I look in this dress? And you're too afraid to talk to them about it. That comes from trauma too. Oh, you're beautiful. Oh, that looks so beautiful. Meanwhile, their dress is stuck up in their underwear or something, and their bottom's hanging out, or whatever. Or it's just this ugly dress, or they're wearing this red dress and they have bright green shoes on or something. And sorry to any of you who do that, and it looks beautiful. That was just the first thing. I was trying to think of the worst colors to put together in that situation. And you don't give them the truth. If someone asks you for their opinion, they deserve a truthful answer. It's how you give that truthful answer. And it's your personal opinion, right? You're not speaking for everyone. So there's that trauma too, where we're afraid to say anything. That's a whole nother trauma. But it's trauma too. And that person was a teacher for you. That person came along at that moment to ask you that question so you could see your reaction was not a healed reaction. I hope that makes sense to everyone. So everyone's a teacher, everyone. My goal in my life and my purpose was to become the spiritual teacher that I am today. So I wanted to be a teacher in this lifetime in a bigger way. I've done it in many other lifetimes, in other situations. I've been a teacher. A teacher does not necessarily mean you have to stand up in the front of the class and teach someone, whatever, long division or whatever. That's not, is that a teacher? Sure. Yes. Uh-huh. But in terms of spirituality, of the spirit, we are all teachers, good, bad, and indifferent. And we aren't just a teacher for someone else. They are teachers for us as well. Every one of my students, I am a student too, as well. I always learn, always. Sometimes it really comes out of the blue and smacks me in the head. I know that sometimes there's spiritual lessons. Sometimes there's more, I learn that I have more healing to do. Sometimes it's those total aha moments like, whoa, I didn't hear that. And I look at Fred and say, why didn't you ever tell me that? There is so much to learn. Not one person can know it all. It's just not possible. I am going to take a moment to send prayer and love to those in Israel. Speaking of a teacher, I have a student who is an Israelite, and I've talked to her every day, and she tells me the absolute horrific things that are going on there and how frightened she is. They are locked down in their homes right now. And she has been, I'm going to start crying. She has been one of the most beautiful teachers for me in my life. I am so honored to know her. I can't pronounce her name, so I call her Mish. And I want us all to send prayers to everyone there in Israel. The things that are happening are absolutely appalling. And this is not, and like Hamas, they're doing it in the name of spirit, and it just isn't. If we're not in love, then it's really not. Are we really doing it in the name of God or spirit? No. So anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Yes, all those people, no matter what side they're on, it's all a spiritual thing. They chose it, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to go there. I just want to take a moment because Mish, not only is it heavy on my heart today, I woke up in tears before I even text her, and we started texting because of all the pain that's coming from there. It's just horrific. But she is one of my spiritual teachers. As a student, I learned from her all the time. Her channel is so beautiful. Right now, it's absolutely being challenged. Her faith in spirit is absolutely being challenged. And that's been most of our question and answers that we've been talking about today and yesterday. It's just her faith and how she can still hold on to trust and not go to that place of absolute sheer fear. So anyway, my heart and my prayers go out to everyone in that situation. And there are Americans over there. There are people from other countries over there. And I just send absolute love to that. Okay. I'm going to stop there. That's not where I wanted this podcast to go, but talking about teachers, of course, she came to my mind. She was one. I remember we were talking once about languages. This comes up a lot with our paranormal channel. Now, mind you, everything is all spiritual, right? So no matter what dimension you're in, it's spiritual. So we had questions about, do you have to, like if you're in, let's say if you're in Spain, do you have to know how to speak Spanish to speak to a ghost there? No, you speak whatever language I only speak English. wherever you are, if you're in Germany or Sweden or Morocco or Japan, whatever country you're in, you speak whatever language you speak, and a ghost is going to understand you, and you will understand them. The reason being is there's only one spirit language. And when Mishi said that to me, I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. It's true. There's one spirit language. In spirit, no matter the other dimension that you're in, whether you're stuck in the dimension closest to us to be an earthy, no matter if you're in the way low dimensions, you're not even an earthy, you're an entity, or you're in the higher dimensions and you are a healed spirit, or maybe you live on a different planet. Whatever it is, within spirit, we all speak the same language. We all can understand each other. And it happens all the time. Mari-Lyn and I, and my students, we do clearings all over the world, all these different languages, and we've never had an issue, ever. And so that's why that question comes up. Well, wouldn't it be, I know there was one person that said, well, wouldn't it be nicer, be more respectful if you talk to them in their native language? Well, no, why would it? Like, no, first of all, they're not in their body, so they're no longer in that native tongue. But no, the respectful piece is how you speak to them. They can understand whatever language you speak to them. It really doesn't matter. They can understand it. As a medium, I can understand them. It's spirit language. And it's not about the words that you say, it's how you say it. It's standing in love and reaching out and saying, I can help you. Allow me, please, to cross you over. Allow me to send you home. That's what matters. And through a beautiful conversation I had with Mish, that's what came out, was that spirit language. That's what she called it. And I have adopted that term, and I don't think I always give her credit for it, but I absolutely give her credit for it. She's the one that said it. She channeled that, and it's absolutely downright perfect. So anyway, back to, wow, what was the story that I came up? I guess, have I always known I was psychic? So looking back, yes. And as I always felt there was something I wasn't doing in life. There was always that feeling there. There was always a purpose that I knew I had, and I just wasn't there yet. Of course, I got married in my 20s. We had children. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had life to live, but my children were small. My husband brought me home this book. I know I've talked about this before. He brought me this book and said, this is a well-known medium, and I think you'll like her story. And it was her story. This book was, I believe it was the story of her life, at least the one of, her being psychic and being a medium and a healer, etc. And I read it cover to cover, and I was just in tears and thought, oh my God, I am not alone here. And there is a purpose for me. And I knew that there was a purpose going forward. Now that was in my 30s. I think I was in my early 30s. I'm not sure exactly. I'm really not good with time. I've never been a journaler. I don't have because of all my years of dissociating, time has no meaning to me. So I can't tell you how old I was here or how old how some people can do that? That always amazes me. They'll say, oh, when I was 12 or when I was 28 or on December 6th, I'm like, how the hell do you know all of that? I have no idea. Different experience in my lifetime. Anyway, so somewhere in my I think I was early 30s. Anyway, that book, that changed my life. That was my sign from spirit. I guarantee you, without a doubt, Fred was trying to get my attention to tell me all of this information and I wasn't listening. So he went to my husband and was like, dude, you got to get her, like, look, buy this book and give it to her. And that's what started me in this beautiful direction. And I started with meditations. I started with meditations, and meditations is such a big thing for me today. I definitely see why that was first. And then I started seeing I started seeing healed spirits long before the paranormal. So part of the reason for that, as I sit here asking, as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to Fred, as I always do. And it's like, why did you start me there and then bring me over? And there was just so much for me to learn. I had to do so much healing first. He wanted me, or I wanted me, I guess my higher self too, this was all planned before coming, wanted me to understand the spiritual process of leaving this body and what that means before going into now what I do the most of, and that is the paranormal stuff. I had to really learn love before I learned that type of if you're an earthbound spirit, anything paranormal, you're in fear. That's the vibration you're in, is fear. So that was the process that I had to take. And so yes, I was a medium for healed spirits for quite some time. I also in my 30s I joined this paranormal group, and I would go out with them to, in quotes, haunted places. And I would just walk through there and just feel, and spirit would give me the information that I needed. And that's kind of where it started and moved forward. I had some paranormal experiences, like as a kid, certainly a teenager. I played with Ouija boards. I did all this kind of stuff, but they weren't big experiences. Because I don't want to take away from people that had, like, paranormal trauma is a real thing. We meet people all the time who are absolutely traumatized by earthies and other dark entity things as children. So I didn't have those types of experiences. So it's not for me to say, oh yeah, I had all kinds of paranormal experiences, or I had because that's what I think of. I think of those people, and I never had anything super scary happen. I freaked myself out. Yeah, that happened a couple of times, but nothing traumatizing. My life in 3D was so traumatizing enough that spirit didn't want to add that, because I very well could have just said, nope, not going there. I am not working with the paranormal because it's too traumatizing. I would have had to have all of that healing on top of my other healing. So I think I was really spared this time. I always, Archangel Michael was always with me. So he scared off, I'm sure, anything that needed to be scared off. Anyway, so that's when I started thinking about it. Things started coming. We lived in a small town where, a church on every corner, everyone belonged to a church. And those of us who didn't were kind of, the heathens, whatever it was. No, it wasn't that bad. They were very accepting of everyone, but we just didn't subscribe to any particular church. And it just sort of evolved. And I found this amazing, like, I met other psychics and so forth. We're not that far from, we did not live that far from, like, Portland, Oregon, which is, psychic city and crazy town when it comes to, psychic stuff. So I had met a lot of psychics. I went to a lot of classes and did different things. Nothing ever felt right, ever. It really didn't. I most of the time I would leave those classes thinking, wow, that person was nuts. Oh my God. And yes, I apologize to you. And yes, you were all teachers. That was another thing Fred would say to me. I'd say, Fred, why the hell did you have me go to that stupid ass class I hated it. It was miserable. The person was a nut job. And he would say, well, you learned, didn't you? You learned what type of teacher you don't want to be. You learned your boundaries of what you believe to be spiritual or not spiritual. You are finding your correct path for you, the balance that you need to become a teacher. Ding, ding, ding. Ah, okay. All right. Thank you. So those are many of those I apologize to spiritually, not in person. I don't think I ever saw most of them again. Then I found this amazing teacher. Her name was Deb. She was the one that taught me the most. She was really my, I want to say, trainer. That was the first time that I had a real development teacher. Most everything I learned like most people do that call themselves psychics or mediums or psychic mediums, whatever. They just sort of learn willy-nilly and they don't have proper training. So their experiences, their teaching style, their belief system is not real weeded out and it's not contained. That's why I believe in finding a very good teacher. You need a good teacher, someone who's going to help you develop and help you develop in the vibration of love, help you to understand your personal gifting. We all have different gifting, what your personal gifting is and how to expand it. That's a good teacher. That is a very good teacher. So after her is when it just sort of exploded for me. And I really fought being a teacher. I didn't want to do it all. And every time I'd like turn on the radio, there'd be a song about a teacher, like, you know, Hot for Teacher from Van Halen or whatever. I'd be driving down the street and I see a big billboard that said teacher across it or whatever. And I was going to be a teacher. There was no way out of it, but I tried. I kicked and screamed the whole time walking into my teacher status, teachery things. So I did, and I became a teacher myself again. Then my students became my teachers. That was something that Deb taught me, something that Fred backed up and supported was, you are not the all-knowing. Just because you're the teacher does not mean that you know everything. Does not mean that you are going to help every single person that comes to your class. You are not for everyone. You are not everything. Get over yourself. And your students are your teachers now. I have stuck with that philosophy and I absolutely believe it wholeheartedly. So my students, yes, are my teachers too. So I still continue to learn all the time. There are things that I used to believe that I no longer believe. I sort of had to change my mind on. Even as far back, we've been doing YouTube videos for almost 2 years now. I have to remember to talk to Mari-Lyn about that. We have a 2-year anniversary coming up. Anywho, there's even things from, I will guarantee you, I don't know what they are at the moment, but I'm sure there are things in the first videos that we did, the first year of videos, maybe even, I'm not sure, that we now maybe think different. Now, let me explain that to you too, because this happens. People, I have not heard this, but I've seen it happen with other people. Oh, you lied because 10 years ago you said this and today you say this. And I'm talking in the spiritual realm. Spirit evolves. We evolve. Our whole planet is ascending. Things are changing constantly. So when I say I changed my mind or something, really, spirit, it changed, it evolved, and I allowed myself to evolve with it. I have allowed myself to see the change and change my verbiage on that and my belief. So thank you. I have Fred and my dad standing behind me, sort of patting me on the head. They're such cheerleaders for me, and I'm so appreciative of that. They often tell me that I do not give myself enough credit. That's something that I'm working on, and that's part of my wounding as a child. If you took credit for something, if you said, "Look what a good job I did," you got a beat down for that. And I'm not a physical beat down, emotional and verbal. That was just never okay. So that's something I still work on, is being able to say, you know what, I'm good at this. Oof, God, even saying that is hard. Even saying that, I just want to turn and look at myself and say, who do you think you are? Oh, you think you're so smart, or you're so good. You think you're better than everyone. Oh my gosh, that's all adopted thinking. Ooh, but you can see how that happens, right? You see how we stand in truth. I stood right there in my dignity, in my worth, and I said out loud, I have value. I am good at this. And immediately my wounding shot up and said, who the hell do you think you are? That's the way trauma works. That tells me right now, Pam, you have some more to heal. You have some more. I'm getting that I've healed most of those wounds, but what I haven't healed, which is still a wound. So yes, it's still a wound. The trauma, I've done a lot of healing on the trauma, but there's still some little open wounds here and there. It's the adopted thinking. That's when your ego jumps in. It's that you've adopted the convention of those belief systems of other people. So my mother telling me that it's not okay to say you're good at something because you're telling people you're better than them. I still have some of that. So that's something that I get to work on. I don't have to, but I get to. I get to heal some more of my crap. I get to heal some more of that adopted belief system that does not serve me. Those are old conventions, old paradigms, old ways of thinking that now need to be updated. So it's time for me to start updating those belief systems and start saying, yes, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. Whew, yikes. And of course, where my brain went this time is, what are you saying you're good at? Oh my gosh, that is a deep one, y'all. And I know a lot of you can feel that. You understand that. You get it. Because same thing happens to you, right? We all have those times. And yes, we can heal that and we can move forward. Our biggest purpose on earth as a human coming here today is love. And it starts with loving ourselves. Our purpose is to find our worth, which comes from loving ourselves. Our purpose is to know that we have value, which comes from worth, which comes from love, right? So I hope all of you can see things that way. When you want to, let's give it the same thing that I have. You want to say, I'm good at this, and not allow yourself to go to that place of embarrassment or shame or anger, or, whatever it is you think is going to happen. Because I think we all, especially one of the biggest ways of parenting, and this has been, I think, throughout history, it is shame. We shame as a form of control. We shame as a form of teaching children. And it doesn't just come from parents. It comes from the community. It comes from teachers. It comes from the dude at the grocery store, Yeah, shaming language is very controlling, and that shame stays with us through our life until we can really begin to heal it. All right, so let me see if I can wrap this up. So yes, I always knew that I was, looking back, I see that I was psychic. I didn't know that at the time. I had that big thing happen in my early 30s with the book, and then took off in this direction. Did I know I was going to be where I am today? No. We are not psychic about ourselves. We don't know where we're going. We don't know where we're going. We might have, like I had a big, like I knew I'd be talking to lots of people. That I knew, but that's as far as it went. I didn't know what that was going to look like. Well, it looked completely different because, with the internet and everything, with YouTube and podcasts and everything else, I mean, I didn't know. I want to tell everyone to believe in yourself, to believe in your dreams, to believe that you are good enough, to believe that you are worthy. You have value, however that shows up in your life. Doesn't matter your job, whatever job you have, there's dignity in it, and you can show dignity to others. You can be love. You can be loving. That's what Spirit wants from all of us. We all are intuitive. We all have a divine line. We all have a direct connection to our higher selves, to Spirit, to our guidance. However you want to look at that, it doesn't matter. Spirit is in with all of us. We are all spiritual beings. We are all more spirit than we are human, because this human life is fleeting, right? We're not here forever. We've had many of them, but we're still always spirit, no matter what part of the journey that we're in. So please, please look at yourself as evolution. You are evolving through life. You are learning to love yourself. You are learning that everyone around you is a teacher. It's more than okay to admit if you were wrong, if you did something unkind. You don't always have to go to that person and tell them. Sometimes that's one of the worst things you can do, depending on that person. And sometimes it's just our fear, thinking that we're going to get a certain reaction, or it is embarrassing, or our, ego gets in the way, whatever, our pride. Please remember that your soul is within your body, and you are a soul before you are human. And to stay in touch with that soul and love, 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 love really, truly is the answer. Thank you so much for tuning in to Pam Ponders today. I had no idea where this was going, and well, we saw where it went. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye.